Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to ProControl University. My name is Clint Forberg, Director of Training for ProControl. I'd like to thank you all for joining us this afternoon. Today is the inaugural ProControl Studio Programming Training. This is our first of two sessions we'll be conducting today and tomorrow. And today's class, of course, is part one. My name is Clint Forberg, again, Director of Training for ProControl University. And today's class will run approximately 1 hour. It will be recorded and posted on our website tomorrow. Everybody listening, I would strongly encourage you, if you're not already, please register at www.procontrol.com to have access to our programming software, and even more importantly, the programming guide that's available that'll walk you step by step through programming any ProControl system using ProControl Studio. In today's class, we're going to get started using the Pro24R and the ProLink-R central control processors. This is a one-way 433 megahertz communication system that we're going to use, and I'm going to show you how easy it is to design a functional control system that can be readily and easily programmed inside ProControl Studio and can be really configured in approximately 10 minutes. You're going to be amazed at how quick and easy it is to set up a fully functional control system that can absolutely be customized for the needs of your exact customer. As we're going through this, if you have questions, please feel free to post them in the Q&A panel within the GoToWebinar software. Speaking to your microphone is not going to do any good. We have tons and tons of attendees here today, and we simply have to keep all those mics muted. So if you have a question, please feel free to post it in that Q&A panel, and if they're pertinent to what we're talking about, I'll read them aloud for the entire class. We also are joined by Mike Everett today. He's manning the keyboard. He'll be answering the other questions in the Q&A panel. In tomorrow's class, we're going to get into some more advanced topic. We're going to start using the Z ProControl devices, the Pro24Z, the ProLink-Z, showing you how to add metadata, two-way communication in that processor, and some more advanced programming features as well. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to get started, and start building a functional control system using ProControl Studio. On your screen, you should be seeing the programming environment, and again, this is the single programming environment for all ProControl products. When we're getting started, the first step is to start adding our ProControl devices to our system. So we're going to go up to the Devices section in ProControl Studio, and you're going to notice a large button here, a green plus sign that says Add. This is where we're going to add the control devices we're using in our system, your remote controls and your central control processor. When we click on Add, it shows all the devices available in ProControl Studio. We can choose the remote control we want to add. If we want a one-way system or a two-way system, we can use the R, which operate on 433 megahertz, or the Z, which are the Zigbee bidirectional control systems. As I mentioned, we're going to get started today using the Pro24R and the ProLink-R processor. So from the pull-down that results when I click on the Add button, let's pull down and choose the Pro24R remote control. It's going to prompt us to name this device if we would like. That's an optional step, but I'm going to call mine the living room remote. Once I've named it, I'm going to go ahead and hit the OK button. And you'll notice that the resulting controller is added under the ProControl Devices section of ProControl Studio programming software. It shows us the name of the device and the model number of the device. If I hover my cursor over that, it shows me a pop-up showing me the name, the type of device, when I last saved the programming in here, and the last time we downloaded it into our device. After we've added the device, we need to go through and configure the configuration properties of this device. These are found on the right-hand side of Integration Designer, listed in two columns, Properties and the values, whether they're on or off, so on and so forth. We can configure to activate or deactivate the tilt switch on the device. So if you're using this in a bus or a motorhome or an airplane, we can disable that. If the tilt switch is disabled, we can also choose to ignore the first button press. It means we can press any button on the controller, a hard button or a touch panel button. It'll ignore the resulting command, simply waking up the interface, allowing us to do what we'd like to do. There's a beeper built in. It's a tone when we press a button. We can choose whether that beeper is played via the on-screen buttons only, the touch panel, the hard buttons, or keypad and on-screen buttons. We can also determine the volume of that tone, low or high. I'm going to set mine to high. There's a backlight built into the controller, and this lights up the touch panel behind the display, and it also lights up the hard buttons on the controller. So I'm going to set the backlight time up, and this is adjustable up to 90 seconds. At the bottom of the Properties window, you'll see there's a description of every property and the resulting values for that. So we can determine the backlight timeout anytime up to 90 seconds. I'm going to set mine up to be about 25 seconds. Backlight level. How light do I want that backlight to be? I'm going to choose high in this case. So it's very simple to go through and configure these properties. Once I've done so, I want to add a central control processor to this system. As you're aware, we can use any of the ProControl remote controls as standalone controllers. I can shoot IR directly from the device and control a local system, a TV and a cable box, for example. But by adding a central control processor gives us a lot more power. Remember, a processor is a lot more than simply a base station. In a ProControl system, the remote control simply has the graphics and RF trigger codes that activate those commands or those macros being issued directly from that central control processor. Makes it a much more reliable system in hostile RF environments. By keeping the intelligence on that central control processor, it gives us that RF performance that you've come to expect with RTI branded products and ProControl branded products. Now that we've added the handheld controller, let's add that central control processor. Back to the devices section in ProControl Studio, I'm going to click on that add button again. When it pulls down, you'll notice the Pro24Z and the ProLink Z processors are grayed out. We can only have one specific type of devices in a specific system file. So now I'm going to go in and I'm going to add my ProLink R processor. It prompts me to name it if I would like to, and I'm going to call mine the main processor. I'm going to click OK, and now we can establish the properties for that device. Again, we're going to go to the right-hand side of ProControl Studio. The first option, System Zone Code. And this is going to be a number that we're going to fill in somewhere between 0 and 255. What this allows me to do is have multiple ProControl systems within a single RF range. So if I have one upstairs and one downstairs, or one in the bedroom and one in the living room, I can ensure that they're not going to crosstalk with each other. So we can go in and set that to a unique number. I would always encourage you to put some value in here other than 0 to ensure there's no cross-talking with neighbors that might be moving into the neighborhood, other rooms in the property, other apartments or condominiums in the particular property. With the 433 system, we have the ability to assign individual channels to that 433. So we can put them on channels 1 through 13 in here, which means I can have multiple ProControl systems in the same home that can be pressing buttons at the same time with no collision between those commands. So they will be able to press and hold a scrolling button to scroll through your channels, for example, and the system downstairs in the theater will continue to be able to use their system as desired. So we can choose one of those channels, and it's all set up. Now our ProControl processor has an Ethernet port on it. We can use that Ethernet port for programming in the case of the ProLink R. So we're going to choose how do we want to get its address from the router or the switch that's in there. DHCP, do we want that to receive a dynamic IP address from the device? Or we can also set it up for a static IP address, and it's going to allow us to fill in all that information directly from our router into here if we choose to use that static IP address. We can enable or disable network programming on this processor. Typically, your programming can be done over a standard USB cable. Plugged into my laptop computer, plugs into my central control processor, and I can download my programming that way. If the device is on the network, we can discover that from within ProControl Studio, and I can download that programming without grabbing my laptop and running over to the rack or the entertainment center. I can simply find it on the network and download my programming that way. This feature is also has the ability to be disabled. If you don't want to use this functionality, simply defeat it, choose No here, and now we can set it up to program via the USB cable only. Here's a question in the chat window I'd like to answer for you. What channel is RTI on for 433? If we have both ProControl and RTI in the same house, will there be any issues if we use a specific channel in ProControl? It's a great question, and the answer to that simply is no. Despite the fact that RTI and ProControl are both operating on 433 megahertz, there's a difference in how we do it. RTI operates on 433 AM, amplitude modulated, whereas ProControl operates on 433 FM, frequency modulated. So there's absolutely no possibility of cross-talking or collision between an RTI system and a ProControl system in proximity or in the same project. Great question. Here's another one. Can you program with a Mac? Now, ProControl Studio is designed as a Windows program. So that being said, you're not going to be able to do it in the Macintosh operating system. However, if you're running VMware, Boot Camp Parallels, or any of those systems that allow you to run Windows on your Mac, no problem whatsoever doing that. All right, let's continue on. We've added our devices. Now here's another good question. Can I only have one remote per system? Absolutely not. So if I wanted to, I could add as many Pro24R remote controls to this system as I would like. Now remember, the range on this processor is not expandable. The antenna is built into it, so they're all going to have to be within that 75 to 150 feet of range from that processor. So as many remotes as you can fit into that project, you're going to be just fine within this particular case. But note, only one processor per system file. couple more questions, and I'm going to try and answer these as we go. Let's see here. Can you update the processor remotely via internet? It's certainly possible. You could port forward into it or VPN into it. However, keep in mind that you cannot update the programming in the remote controls, only the processor. So there might be some limited value to that, but again, it's primarily designed to be done on site. For more remote updating features, RTI may be a better choice for you as it's more powerful and designed for these larger projects. Remember, the desired application for ProControl is going to be these systems where you simply can't typically afford to put RTI into these projects. Can you use the RTI IR Pro to import codes into ProControl? Absolutely. They use the same type of CML IR database. So you can learn commands directly into your ProControl remotes, or you can use your RTI IR Pro capture device if you have that. All right, so let's go on and let's continue programming our system. We're going to keep this one simple. It's going to be one remote and one central control processor at this point. We've added the devices. We see them here into the ProControl devices section of ProControl Studio, and we've set up the properties for each of those devices. Simple so far, right? Okay, the next step, controlled devices. Hey, what's in this system that I want to actually be controlling? Do I have a TV? Do I have an AV receiver? Is there a cable box or a DirecTV box? What devices do we have? These are called controlled devices. So now, let's go ahead and start adding some controlled devices. You're going to find this section directly below the ProControl devices in the programming software. Now, you can grab any of these panes and resize them to be whatever size you would like, including the side panes. Let's add some controlled devices. Again, we're going to click on the Add button, the green plus sign, and it's going to ask us what type of controlled device would you like to add. In the case of the R systems, it has to be an IR device. This processor does not have the capability of doing network control, of using two-way drivers, of doing serial control. It's IR only, so we're going to be plugging emitters into our ProLink R processor and sticking them to the front of the devices that we're controlling. So let's choose infrared device. That's the only choice we have. I'm going to go ahead and this is going to open the master IR library built into ProControl Studio. Now this is a list that we can scroll through, or I can use the search bar at the top to add my desired devices. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to add the controlled devices in my system. My customer has a Blu-ray player, so let's go ahead and add that. He has a Sony, so I'm going to type in what I'm looking for in the search bar. Sony. Now I can go down and find the Blu-ray player command set that I want to use. This one says all models. Looks like a good choice. I'm going to go ahead and highlight it. Once I select that device from the master IR library in ProControl Studio, it's going to suggest any pages for that device, interface pages that are going to show up on my remote control. If I click on the suggested page, it's going to give me a preview of what it looks like. I want to add this, so I want to keep that box checked. If I don't want to add it, I can simply uncheck that box. Click OK. And now that controlled device has been added. Now, we can see the device. Name, Blu-ray. You can customize that name to be something else. Manufacturer, model number, type of device, and the remote control that it's going to be used with. In this case, the living room remote control. If I had multiple remote controls in here, I could choose any or all of those remote controls to have these pages built onto it. There's also some properties for that controlled device, again, found on the right-hand side. Where's the IR sent from? The processor or the remote control? In this case, I want to leave it at the processor. If I chose remote control and I press those buttons, those commands would be issued directly from the remote. In this case, I'm going to use an emitter. It's in a rack or it's in an entertainment center. I'm going to stick that emitter right on the front of that Blu-ray player. It gives me an opportunity to do some port routing. There's 4 routable IR ports on the ProLink R processor, labeled ports 1 through 4. Now, you can also customize the name of these ports if you want to do port routing. If you have 2 cable boxes or 2 TVs, let's go ahead and name those ports. That would be done through the properties of that ProControl device. It's a step I neglected. In the properties, you'll see IR port names, 1 through 4, and their display name. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to rename these. I'm going to call the first port satellite. Second port, that's going to be my DVD player. My third port maybe is my AV receiver. Can't spell, excuse me. Okay, I'm not going to put anything in port 4 right now. When we go back to our controlled device, you'll see the names of those ports show up. Right now, this command is being issued through all of these ports. If these are the only devices I have, it's typically not going to be a problem. But if you want to steer that IR command through a desired port, it's a real simple process. Do I want it to come through the satellite port? No. So I'll simply deselect that. The DVD port? Absolutely. It's a Blu-ray player. The receiver? No. And the other port? Nor. So I've routed that IR command for that device to be issued through this port and this port only. couple of questions in the chat window. Can you do both the processor and the remote? You can, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. How many IR emitters can a single port drive? Another good question. Each port on the ProLink processors is capable of driving up to 4 standard emitters. And we have an accessory that's going to be available that's going to allow you to split one into 4. Otherwise, you can simply wire them up as you do now with wire nuts or soldering or whatever you'd like to do. But each one has enough voltage and current to drive 4 standard IR emitters. Okay, so now we've added our first controlled device. Let's add the rest for our simple system here. Okay, next my customer has a satellite TV box. He's got a DirecTV receiver. So let's add another controlled device. We're going to click on the green plus sign under controlled devices, add. Infrared device, and it reopens that library. This time it's going to be a DirecTV box. DIR drills me down to the DirecTV section, and I can choose the code set that I want to use, all HR and H series. Highlight it, it says, hey, I've got a page I'd like to recommend. Would you like to put that in? I would. So let's hit OK, check the box, and throw it in there. Again, the properties of that controlled device. I want the IR sent from the processor. I'm going to stick an emitter on it. What ports do I want it being issued from? The satellite port? By all means. DVD port? Not so much. No, and not that port either. So I can route it again through that specific port of my controller. The third device I'm going to add. I'm going to add my AV receiver to this system. Back to controlled devices. Add, infrared device, and type what I'm looking for. My customer has a Denon, D-E-N. Get down to the receivers, and I can see I've got one here, AVR series, main zone, all models. Looks like a good choice. Go ahead and click on it. Now it's going to offer me several pages. There's an AM/FM radio page. Do I want to add that? Yes. I'm going to check that box. How about internet radio? Nah, I'm going to skip that. Satellite radio? Yes, I want to add that. So I can choose which pages are going to be added and seeing the previews. Hit OK. That final controlled device has been added. Again, we're going to go into the properties. I want the IR sent from the processor. I'm going to stick an emitter to the front, or I'm going to jack it directly into the back. And which port? Satellite? No. DVD? No. AV receiver? Yes. And the unused port? No. All right, so I'm sure everybody's with me so far. And as you can see, it's a very, very simple process, adding these control devices and setting up their properties. The last thing that I want to add, a TV. We have a display that's going to be in the main room where we're viewing this stuff. In this case, add a controlled device. Infrared device, let's add our Samsung TV. SAM drills down to the Samsung section. Samsung makes a lot of gear, so rather than drilling down or scrolling down to find the device, I can simply hit my space bar and type what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a TV. Samsung TV, all models. Looks good. I'm going to go ahead and hit that. Shows me a page. Now here's a page very similar to that page that I added for my DirecTV box. That's got my favorite channels. Since I'm not going to be using the internal tuner in here, I don't want to add this page. I'm simply going to uncheck it. We're going to be using the DirecTV page for our favorite channels and tuning up and tuning down. Simply need to be able to turn on that TV and choose the appropriate inputs. Hit OK, and the final device has been added. Now in this case, let's say that we have a TV that I can't stick an emitter on for any reason. Maybe the processor and all the audio video equipment's in a rack in a closet or downstairs. Rather than running a wire to that TV, maybe I want to use the built-in IR capability in my Pro24 remote control. I want to hit that button, turn that TV on by shooting IR directly at it. So in this case, IR sent from, I don't want to be issued from the processor. I want to be issued from the remote control. And you can see that defeats the port routing and things like that. The IR commands for that control device simply shot right out of the remote control as we're going. Okay, so we'll leave it there with our programmed controlled devices. Simple so far, right? We added our controlled devices, we established the properties. We added our Pro control devices, established the properties for those. Now we need to start editing. Let's see what we're left with by Pro Control Studio. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start editing. I'm going to go up to the Pro control devices, and I'm going to choose my living room remote control. I'm either going to double click on it, or I'm going to hit the edit button to open up the programming window for the Pro24R remote control. Now you can see that it's populated some pages directly on here. First of all, you're going to notice right away it's built us a home page based on the controlled devices that we've added. A radio button for AM/FM radio, satellite TV, Blu-ray player, satellite radio. It pre-programmed, it automatically programmed those icons on there for us. We didn't have to build an interface from scratch. It put exactly the buttons on that we're going to be using. When you see a green check mark on the upper left-hand corner of a button, that means it has a macro on it. It means it has some programming on it. Now in this case we have 4 activities that it auto-programmed in here, and you'll see 2 additional buttons. These are called placeholders. Those are simply there. If I added additional pages, it would populate those in. These will not show up in your final programming when you download, so there's no need to delete these placeholders. They're simply there to keep room available for additional devices or additional pages as we add them to our controller. You'll also notice over on the left-hand side is a representation of the hard buttons on my Pro 24-hour remote control. You'll see some of these hard buttons are green. These indicate that this is a global key or a global button. It's going to do the same thing on every page of my device. Volume up, volume down, and mute. Those are all global buttons. By hovering your cursor over, it'll tell you those buttons are global. And again, that means if there's a command, a macro, a page link on there, it's going to do the same thing on every page of our device. And you'll also notice the check mark on a lot of these hard buttons. That means it's been auto-programmed for us. If we click on one of those buttons, we can see the auto-programming that's been placed on it by going over to the right-hand side of Pro Control Studio. Click on the tab that says Macro found at the top, and it shows us, here's the command on the processor, receiver volume up. It automatically programmed that by adding that control device, by adding those pages for it, it's automatically done that programming for me. So it's huge, it's simple, it's really, really easy to do. Let's choose a new page. I'm going to go to my DVD player page, for example. To access the pages on the controller, there's a couple of different ways you can do it. At the top of Pro Control Studio, it shows us the current page, my home page. There's a pull-down list here I can choose, and I can go directly to a channel, or a page, excuse me, my Blu-ray player. Shows me that Blu-ray page, and it also shows me that it's built me a page with the buttons on there. There's green check marks, which means they're automatically programmed for us. It's already placed those commands on each of those pages. Angle, audio, subtitle, clear. It's already been done for us. So it makes it incredibly easy to do. If you look at the hard buttons on the controller, check it out. The cursor functions, already programmed. Everywhere you see that green checkbox, my numeric keys, play, pause, all my transport functions, my color functions, they've already been done for us. So it's very quick and very easy. But remember, even though it programs them for us, it automatically programs them, you as the programmer can go in and add commands, remove commands, anything that you want to do very, very easily. Another way we can access all the pages on our device is by hitting the Pages button right next to Current Page, which opens up a window that shows me all the pages on my current device, my home page, and it shows me a preview of each of them. We have a power off page, one for the devices, and a power on page for the devices. My Blu-ray, my satellite TV pages, AM, FM radio, satellite, they're all right here, and I can simply go in and I can choose any of those that I would like to grab simply by double-clicking on it. So I'm going to go to my AM, FM radio page here, double-click on it, and it opens it up in Pro Control Studio so I can begin to edit it. All right, so here's a page, AM, FM radio. And you can see on the AM, FM radio page, we have some basic functionality programmed in here already. Volume up and down, mute, things like that. But I've got some buttons on here, presets 1 through 9. I want to add commands to those. Now, we don't add commands to buttons. Everything is a macro, whether it's one command, whether it's a page link, whether it's a series of commands. Everything is a macro. So to build a macro on a button, we simply click on it. I'm going to go over to the right-hand side and go to the Macro tab. And you can see there's no commands on here currently. So I'm going to hit Add. This is going to allow me to add steps to my macro. Click on it, and it opens up a pane, Add Macro Step. And you can take this and relocate it anywhere that you would like. In the Macro Step section, adding a time delay, stop macro, button pause, repeat steps. We'll talk a little bit more about these as we go, but I simply want to add a command for my AV receiver on here. I'm going to go in, and I'm going to choose devices. I'm going to expand that category, and it shows all the controlled devices that I've added to my system. My Blu-ray player, my satellite receiver, my Denon receiver, and my TV. They're all in here. So I'm going to expand out my receiver. That's where I'm getting my AM, FM radio from. I'm going to highlight it. Again, this window is sizable, so I can grab it, make it any size that I would like, and here's all the commands I have for that device. I'm going to scroll down until I find my tuner commands. All right, here they are. Tuner preset 1. I'm going to highlight it. I can add that selected item by hitting the button at the bottom, or I can simply double-click it. See that green check mark on the upper left-hand of the corner? See that the command has been added here in the macro column over on the right-hand side. How about preset number 2? Double-click on the command. We can leave that window open, kind of like a palette, and simply make the changes we need. Preset number 3, couldn't be simpler. So I'm just going to go through and program the steps that I want in this macro. Preset number 5. You get the idea. Again, very simple to do. Go ahead and close that pane when you're done. Now the buttons on here are easily customizable. In this case, they say preset 1 through 9. Okay, that's great. But why don't we customize these a little bit for our customer? When I click on a button, I can go over to that right-hand side, and this time I'm going to choose Properties. Here's where I can change the appearance, the properties, all the configuration settings of that specific button. So I'm going to go down to Button Text. Right now it shows me the text. Right now it just says Preset 1. I don't want to say Preset 1. I want to show me the name of the radio station. So I can easily change that text. How about the color? You know what? I don't want it to be white. If I click on it, you'll see that you can copy or paste in or type in the hex data for a specific color, or you can use the down arrow to open up a color palette. So I could easily go in and make that text yellow, for example. You can see it shows up there. Font size. How big do I want it to be? Pull down and choose the desired font size. I'm going to leave it at 8. Do I want that text bold? Yes or no? So it's very easy to customize it. How about my alignment? Do I want it centered? Do I want it on the left, the right, or right in the middle? And also vertical alignment. Here's the middle. We can choose to put that text on the top of a button, the bottom of a button, or right in the middle, which is where I'm going to leave it. So there's a lot of ability to customize these. Even though it's pre-programmed, you have the ability to modify it as you'd like to for your specific customer. I can go to my next button, preset number 2, and do the same thing. It says preset 2. This time I want to say something else. Now I've customized that text and modified it. Now you'll notice as I did this, I didn't go through and change all the formatting for each of these buttons. I formatted one button and I just put the text on this button. We don't have to go through those steps of formatting each button as necessary. What I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to select both these buttons. To select multiple buttons on the screen in Pro Control Studio, simply hold down your Shift key. Click on the buttons you want to select and highlight the button that's already been formatted. Once I've done that, there's a tool found at the bottom toolbar. This is where all your graphic alignment toolbars are. You're going to find a button called Make Same Style. If I click on Make Same Style, it's going to make all my selected buttons match the formatting of that anchor bitmap, or the one with the solid red corners. So you can see it change the color, change the typeface, change the size, change the alignment, anything that you want to put in there. So again, you just format one time, use Make Same Style to get everything else to follow suit. It's quick, it's easy, and it's really simple to do. Okay, let's go over to our home page real quickly. So I'm going to go up to my pull down, and I'm going to choose Home. Brings me back to that page that we've already created. Pro Control Studio has added all the icons for my activities, and it's already programmed those. So what I'm going to do is take a look at our macro that's been put on here. Let's go to Satellite TV. When I click on it, see it's got a green check, which means it has a macro on it. I'm going to go to my macro tab, and it's going to show me precisely the macro that's been built on here. Commands to run on the remote control. TV power on, and flip to the satellite TV page. Since these are running from remote control, remember that TV power on command issues from my remote control. I point at the TV, I hit the button, bang, sends the IR command, turns on that Samsung TV. Here's the commands that run on my control processor. Turns on my satellite receiver. My preamp. It even puts a time delay in there for me before it chooses the input. So you can see all that auto programming that happens in there. Very powerful, very easy to do. All the heavy lifting has been done for us. What if I want to modify this macro in some way? You know what? Not only do I want to turn on that TV, but I want to make sure that it's on HDMI 3, and I want to put a time delay in there. So we can simply add more commands. Hit Add button. There's my macro step window. Let's go to our devices. Hit the plus sign to expand it out. Choose my TV, and let's go find the input that I want to select. Pull down to my inputs. There's HDMI 2. Double click on it to add it. I want to put a time delay. Say this TV needs 3 seconds to power up. Let's add a time delay in there. So we'll go up to Delay, and we'll pop it in there. Now when I added the delay, you'll notice that it didn't know where to put it. It doesn't know if you want to run the remote. It doesn't know if you want to run the processor. So we need to adjust that. 5 seconds, that's not what I want in there, so let's adjust that value. Down here at the bottom, I can choose the property. Delay in seconds. 5? No. I want to make it 3. Now that I've adjusted that value, I'm going to grab that command and drag it right where I want it. I want to put it right there on the remote control. TV turns on, flips to the satellite TV page, waits for 3 seconds, and then it sends the HDMI 2 command to the device right out of the remote control. Easy, easy, easy. It's all done for you. Simply programs it in, and you're all set. Let's take a look at our satellite TV page. You see there's a page link on there. been added. Change to page satellite TV screen number 1. So let's pull down and take a look at that page, satellite TV. Now in here it's got a selection of icons that are already on our screen. Now these icons are representative of what's available. They might not be what exactly your customer wants, so let's go in and let's change these icons to suit the needs of our customer. On the right-hand side of ProControl Studio, we have those 3 tabs at the top. Properties allows me to adjust a particular button's configuration properties. Macro shows me the commands that are on there. Images opens up the built-in image library in ProControl Studio. So there's all kinds of different graphics in here we can choose. So let's just add the commands that we want for a particular customer. At the top, I can search for commands. So if I'm looking for a HBO icon, for example, simply type in HBO. It shows me everything that's there, grab it, and drag it on the button where I want it to be. We can also use the libraries pull down at the top and choose from the bitmap libraries in here. TV channel icons. Select it, and there they are. Get rid of HBO in the search box here so we get a full selection. Now I can just go in and place my customer's favorite stations on the buttons where I want to see those. Sometimes when a page is added in ProControl Studio, there may be multiple frames associated with it, or screens is what we call them. So in this case, I've got a page of my favorite TV channels. But also up here, you'll notice this is screen 1 of 2. This is seen above the preview window. If I click on the arrow, it shows me the next one. So now I can go in and make any modifications I want to that one as well. There's only 2 available. What if I want to add another favorite TV channel page? What if I want, kids' favorites, sports, movies, all that kind of stuff? So let's go in and let's add another favorite TV channel page. The easiest way to do that is to simply go up to the Pages tab. I'm going to click on it. Now, I'm going to pull down to the page that I'm working with, in this case, satellite TV. I'm just going to make a duplicate. Right-click, copy screen. Now I'll go right here to the front, right-click, paste screen, and you can see it adds as many of those as I need, and I can easily go in and change out those icons as necessary. Go ahead and close it, and you're all set. So you've built them all. You add those bitmaps in. You already know how to do that. But now let's go in and let's build some channel macros on here. Now, building a channel macro from scratch for a number of these can be a real time-consuming process. I'm going to show you a real simple way to do it, and this is native in ProControl Studio. Couldn't be easier. I'm going to click on the button I want to build the macro, choose macro, add a step. Let's find our device, satellite TV box. And here's my commands. This one's channel 23, 2, 3, enter. There's my macro, 23, enter. Click on the next one. 66, enter. Right here, 56, enter. So it's a simple process to build these macros very quickly and easily, simply because you can leave that macro step window open. You can leave it like a palette, and you can completely customize that interface super powerfully. And you can even do it over here. Add a command, drop it in there. If you want to delete a command, it's real simple. The hard button for 1. I only want to send the 1 command, not a macro that says 11. So I can simply highlight the command I want to get rid of, hit the delete button, and it's gone. So it's a very simple process, and hopefully you've gotten that impression. It's as simple as really 1, 2, 3. We're going to add our ProControl devices and set up their properties. We're going to add our control devices, and then we're going to download. That's all there is to it. ProControl Studio takes care of so much of that back-end work that you've normally done manually, but as you can see, it still gives you the ability to completely customize it as necessary. When you're done with your programming, you simply need to download to your devices. That's a really simple process. I'm going to show you how that's done. Let's go to the download button at the top of ProControl Studio. When I select the download button, it's going to show me all the devices that are in my system file. Here's my living room remote. Here's my main processor. It tells me what they are, and it tells me whether or not they need updating. Remember, our processor is not a base station. It is actually a smart device. It has intelligence. We must download the program into each of those devices. When I've done so, we can choose how we're going to program the device. Let's start with our remote control. When I highlight it, it's going to look and see if it can find it. Now you can see it's not seeing that remote control. We have to plug it in via the USB cable that's provided with the device. I'm going to plug in my Pro 2.4, and there it is, my living room remote, and it shows it to me. I'm going to choose a device. If there's more than one remote in there, we're going to choose which system file we want to send. My living room file shows me the firmware version, and I can update that if necessary by hitting the Update Firmware button. But now I just want to download to my selected device. I'm going to click on that button. ProControl Studio opens up a window showing me that it's transferring the data into the remote control. It's going to show me a progress bar, 0 to 100%, takes a few seconds, drops the programming in. The screen of the Pro 24R is telling me, hey, this data file is being upgraded. Do not remove the USB cable while it's halfway through. It's going to hang up. That's pretty obvious, right? So we're going to send the programming file in, and it's going to let me know when it's done by removing this gauge, and now it tells us right here that device is up to date. Simple to do. How about my processor? When I highlight it, it's going to show me my processor. Here it is. You can see it's got an IP address. I've got it on the network. So rather than using my USB cable to program into it, I'm simply going to highlight that device and download over the network. So again, sends the data. This time we're not running around with our USB cable. We're simply updating it over the network. Now you can see that device is up to date. Hit the close button and collect your check from your customer. You're done with your programming. So that's it in a nutshell. It's a very simple process, and it's getting familiar with the software, simply knowing where everything is. That programming guide is a terrific resource for you. I want each and every one of you to download that because it's going to walk you step by step through all of these, and as well as some advanced features that we'll be covering a little bit later today, and a lot of them we'll be doing tomorrow as well. Now there's a ton of questions in the chat window that I'm going to try and get to for you, but I don't want all those on the recording. So when we're done here, I'm going to turn off the recording, and I'm going to stay on and answer as many of your questions as I can now that we're in there. Now there's some features in Pro Control Studio. You've seen how to add images, things like that, but you also have some very powerful features that allow you to draw and customize the graphics in the device. So let's go ahead and let's start doing exactly that. I'm going to add a new page to my device. Now at the top, above the window, the programming window in Pro Control Studio, there's an add button to add pages. When you click on it, it's going to allow you to add a page from the templates built into Pro Control Studio. I can open it up, and now I can go in and I can choose any of the pages that are on there. We can hit a checkbox in there, add the pages that we want. We can also see a preview of each of those. I'm going to cancel that. We can add a blank page. This allows us to build one completely from scratch, so we can customize it by dragging and dropping our own bitmaps on there, or we can go through and draw our own buttons. That's what I want to show you next. So I'm just going to add a simple blank page to my device. We'll just call it blank page for lack of anything better to call it. Hit OK. And there's my simple blank page. Now what I want to do is I want to start drawing some buttons on my screen. We can go in and drag and drop those images from our image library. That's a real simple process. Go to the images file and choose all libraries and just start scrolling down. You'll find channel icons. You'll find backgrounds, source icons. There's all kinds of stuff in here that you can use, but I'm going to go ahead and just find a source icon, for example. Various sizes, grab something, drag and drop it onto my screen. Now you'll notice by default when I drag a window on there, there's a small grid superimposed over this window that I can use to easily align multiple bitmaps on my screen. So it makes it real simple to get everything lined up. That grid tool is found right above the programming window. It's like a little dashed box here. When I click on it, I can choose a 10 by 10 grid. That's the default. 20 by 20. It's a little larger grid, a little broader range of motion. Or I can eliminate that grid altogether, and that gives me the ability to place those bitmaps on my screen anywhere that I would like them on the device. When I click on a button, you'll notice that it highlights in red. That means it's my selected button. So not only am I working with this button, but it also represents the touchable portion of that button. This is the portion of the touch panel that responds when my finger presses it. You want to change the size of that button? Go ahead and just click and drag it, and you can make that button any size that you would like. Now this does not adjust the size of the bitmap, simply the touchable portion of that button. I'm going to grab that one. Let's make this one a little bit bigger. When I've done that, you also have the ability to change the positioning of the graphic within that button. If I right-click on it, I can choose Move, and this allows me to center that button vertically or horizontally on my screen. Go ahead and reduce the size of that one. And some other tools too. If you modify the size of a button as I've done here, I can select both of these buttons, and I can choose tools along the bottom toolbar to layer or arrange them, to position them, to resize those buttons, make the same width, make the same height, make the same size. Highlight them, and now both those buttons are the same size on my screen. So there's a lot of different ways to modify the way that these appear. How about some of the alignment features? I'm going to grab both these buttons again using my cursor. Align left. Aligns both buttons along the left edge of my anchor bitmap. To change the anchor, simply hold your Shift key down and modify it as you'd like. How about align center? Lines them up along their center axis, their right axis. Or we can set them up side by side, and we can set them up to align along the top, the center, or the bottom. So there's lots of different alignment tools to arrange our bitmaps on our screen. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete these two buttons because I want to draw some buttons from scratch onto my screen. Using the bitmap buttons is a great way to do it because they're attractive, they're easy to use, but there's going to be times that you want to make your own buttons in specific sizes or in specific shapes. At the top of the programming window, you're going to see several tools you can select. Currently, I'm on my select button. This allows me to click on a button, manipulate it, do whatever I want to do. But you're also going to find 3 different shapes for drawing our own buttons from scratch. We'll draw a rectangle. This allows me to go in and draw a rectangular button on my screen any size that I would like. How about the rounded rectangle? Allows me to go in and draw a button that has rounded corners on it. I can also draw, whoops, I didn't mean to do that, a circular button. Allows me to draw an elliptical button on the screen. So several different shapes of buttons that you can draw, and you can again place them anywhere that you want to on a specific button. What if I want to put some text on a button? Simple to do. Let's go to Properties and go to the Button Text section. Again, I can't spell, pardon me. Test button. So there's my text on the button. Pretty simple? Sure, no problem at all. Text color. I don't want blue, I want it to be red. Text color when it's pressed. Now the normal text color is the appearance of the button when it's not being pressed on the remote control. The pressed color is when I press it. What does it do when I respond? I want some feedback so I can change the color. So when it's normal, I want it to be red. But when I press that text, I want it to turn blue. Font size. How big do I want that text to be? There's 13 point, 8 point, 10 point. Find exactly what you like. Do I want it bold? Sure. No? Not so much. And again, I can adjust the alignment. Left, right, or center. Top, bottom, or right in the center where I want it. So a lot of different things that we can do. How about fill color? Button border and fill. Do I want to see the border? That's the line around the outside. Yes or no? Now you can see that you can't see it at all. I want to see it in this case. What color do I want that border to be? Do I want it to be blue? No, I want it to be bright red. Easy to do. How about for its press state? I can make that border a different color just like we did with our text color. Fill color. Right now it's white. White on a white background, not such a great button. So I can highlight it, go in, I can choose a particular color, or I can also go in and make it a transparent button. So I have an image background, I can simply go in and select transparent, and then I can see the color of the background through it. Now in this case, let's change the color of our background so you can actually see what I'm representing here. Let's make it that color. You can see that's a transparent button, whereas these have a white fill color on those. So fill color pressed. Again, we can have different states for the normal or unpressed state and the pressed or active state of the controller. One of the other neat things about color in Pro Control Studio is you can choose more colors. I can go in and I can make my own custom color. If I don't like the colors that are shown in the palette, I can go in and I can choose any color that I would like. And another thing in here is a select color tool. And this is really nice where I can go in, choose that tool, select, and I can hover that over anything on my screen. So I want to make it match that color, or that color, or that color. I can easily do it. So it makes it real easy to match up your colors. You don't have to go hunting or entering in hex codes. Simply hover that tool over something, add it, throw it in there if you'd like to. So some really neat things you can do with the software. All right, now I've got these 3 buttons on the screen. Let's look at more of the alignment tools on here. When I select a button, here's a couple of unique buttons. Center vertically, center horizontally. Center vertically allows me to take that button and center it between the top and bottom of my screen. Same thing for horizontal. It's going to place it right there in the middle. I don't have to sit and figure out the values or grid it in there with the grid. I simply center it. And I can do those with the rest of my buttons also. Hold Shift, and I can do a group of buttons, throw those in the center right where I want them. I can grab them, line them up along their center edge. We have tools that allow us to go in, distribute the spacing. So I can go in and equalize the spacing between all my buttons automatically. I can even go in and I can distribute them evenly from the top to bottom of my screen, up and down or left to right. So you have a lot of custom graphics ability on a very basic remote control at an incredibly attractive price point. So in addition to all of its auto programming features, all of its versatility, you can modify it as necessary. Very easy. Go in, customize it, knock yourself out. It's unlike any other easily programmed control system that's out there in that it has the auto programming features, yet allows you to modify them as you see fit. So there's a basic overview of programming, and I'm going to shut off the recording now, and I'm going to stay online and answer some questions for you. So for those of you leaving us now, thank you very much. My name is Clint Forberg. I'm Director of Training for ProControl. This video will be available for review on the ProControl website at www.procontrol.com, and you'll be able to access it and view it at any time. And again, I'll stay online and answer some questions afterward. Thank you for joining us. I certainly appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow for part 2 of ProControl Studio programming training. Have a great night.